Well, good day, everyone. We are now coming to a portion of our Bible readings that are, let's just say, some people stop at about this point, and they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. This is really good information, and I know it's not what we're used to, and most of us haven't heard too many sermons from Leviticus, but we should probably hear more. We're talking this week about the last two chapters of Exodus, or we're going to be reading these chapters, and then the first 18 chapters of Leviticus. So Exodus 39 and 40, and Leviticus 1 through 18. Let me give you a rundown. Hopefully, this will help you to have something that might assist you in understanding what it is you're reading. In Exodus 39, we've had the blueprints for the tent of meeting and various articles that go in there and the priestly garments. Well, in chapter 39 of Exodus, we have statutes for the high priest's garments. And that's important because the high priest, that role is a huge role when it comes to atonement. And this is the Levitical issue of the high priest, but that's pointing to a greater high priest. I know I'm jumping to the book of Hebrews and really to Jesus, but this is ultimately what the Bible is pointing to. But in chapter 40 of Exodus, we find that the Israelites have been out of Egypt for 1 year. And on the 1 year anniversary of leaving Egypt, they erect the tent of meeting. It's finally done. It's complete. So, and I don't know if it's exactly the 1 year anniversary. I may be off by a few days there, but it's about a year after leaving Egypt. They're in the wilderness there by Mount Sinai, and they have the tent of meeting set up. And it is a very big issue for them because this will someday be replaced by the physical temple in Jerusalem. And there's a lot that is going to be connected to the tent of meeting and why this is so important for the people of Israel. When we look at Leviticus, now we jump in there. Let me give you a note from Exodus chapter 40, verse 17, and the book of Numbers, chapter 1, verse 1. We can deduce that the events that we read about in Leviticus take about a year, about a month, because in Exodus 40:17, we're told that these things happen on the first day of the first month of the second year. And then in the book of Numbers, we're told that it's a month later that the Lord speaks to Moses. Here's what I want to give you as far as helping you to understand Leviticus. As you read through it, keep these things in mind. How can a person approach God? How can we approach God? Do we come up with our own terms? Or has God given us the terms? And if he has, will he change them? I'll give you a hint. It's his terms and he doesn't change them. So we don't just waltz into the presence of God willy-nilly, so to speak. Why do we need a high priest? What is the functionality? What is the role of the high priest? Why is this so critical in having a well-rounded theology? And ultimately, what of these high priests who are fellow sinners? I mean, can they really do for us what we need done? Or is there a high priest coming who is sinless, who doesn't have to make atonement for his own sins because he has no sins to make atonement for other than the sins of his people? Yeah, that's where we start talking about Jesus. And that's where you might even want to read the book of Hebrews while you're reading these chapters in Leviticus, because Jesus is the great high priest. And before you say, wait, the high priest has to be a Levite, and Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. Well, we need a greater priesthood, one that predates this Levitical priesthood. Do you remember reading back in Genesis? Remember chapter 14, where Abram met a guy named Melchizedek? Yeah, there's a priesthood according to that order. And that's the order that Jesus has. But anyway, I don't want to get off track. Chapters 1 through 3 of Leviticus, the Lord speaks to Moses from the tent of meeting about various offerings. In chapters 4 through at least part of chapter 6, we read about sins and atonement that must be made. Atonement refers to the work that has to be accomplished rightly to be able to atone for sins. And we can't do that for ourselves. We need someone to do it for us. The latter part of chapter 6 and going into chapter 7 It's about law or laws concerning different offerings. And then in chapters 8 and 9, and yes, I'm looking down at my notes, we have the priest and the high priest being consecrated. What a moment, right? You would think, wow, this can't get any better. And then you read chapter 10, and two of those priests, two of Aaron's sons, they offer strange fire to the Lord. And this is it's in front of everybody. And God responds with severe action. He takes the lives of Nadab and Abihu. And you're going to read about that. You do not sin against God and get away with it, especially those who know better. I know that sounds terrifying. Not verse, but chapters 11 and 12, we're talking about laws concerning clean and unclean. And then chapters 13 and 14, leprosy and leprous people. Trust me, you probably want to read those before you eat or well after you eat. I'll just leave it at that. In chapter 15, another fun chapter, issues regarding discharges and cleansings. Okay, chapter 16, the Day of Atonement. This is really, really awesome. The Day of Atonement, what an important chapter in the Bible. It is called Yom Kippur, and it has major implications. This is that one day a year when the high priest, and only the high priest, goes into the tent of meeting, and behind the veil to where the Ark of the Covenant is, with the mercy seat on top. Oh, good stuff. You don't want to miss this. Chapter 17, more words concerning offerings and atonement. And then chapter 18. This is where God begins to lay down some very serious things. The people of Israel have been in Egypt for over 4 centuries, and they've watched the Egyptians do a lot of things. And God says, don't you dare emulate them. Don't do it. I have called you out to be a consecrated people, a sanctified people. You've seen how they live, but I have a way that my people live, and these are my laws. So when somebody wants to run to Leviticus and use verses way out of context, I'm getting a little off course. I'm just tired of when people try to justify sin by wrongly using Leviticus. And I'll stop right there. But have a great week in reading. It's good stuff. I promise it is. See you next time.